Welcome to a radical discussion of independence, free will, liberty, and the left-hand path. This is Daimonosophy 2.0 with your host, Paul Frederick.
Kazimierza, skąd się wzięła ta miłość do Kazimierza? No vision and grasp.
All right, we're live. Edgar Kerval. How you doing?
Fine. Just here relaxing here at home. No, nothing special today. It's just normal.
Awesome.
Normal.
Well, we're talking because we're both going to be seeing each other in a few weeks in Portland for the Black Flame PDX festival. And so I wanted to get you on the show here on Daimonosophy to talk a little bit about what's coming up and everything. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You live in Colombia, right?
Yes. I am Edgar Kerval, 47 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I am working in magic for about 25 years.
Uh-huh.
I'm working mostly about the sinister path, shamanism, and mostly the correlate with the dead.
Uh-huh.
Mostly the 80s, and have been releasing my own publishing house. It's called Sirius Limited Esoterica. I have released about 7 books and some anthology books too. So everything is mostly about my path. Also, I have been working in some musical projects, mostly into ritual music with Emeja and Nos Dos Dias and other projects as well. And mostly it's my work, mostly music and focusing into the left-hand path and magic.
Yeah, so you have a huge amount of work that's online. I've been trying to take it all in. So do you consider what you do to be left-hand path?
Left-hand path is most a kind of individual path of celebrations. It's a kind of introspection of each person to increase all the potential and psychic and spiritual powers that are there, but sometimes people don't know how to awake that. So in left-hand path, through certain process or alchemical process, you can reach such level of subconscious in which you can release all that kind of energy that is latent there, but perhaps some people don't know how to awake. Mostly a path of liberation. Shortly, left-hand path is a path of liberation.
Mm-hmm. So I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying. It's a path of individual self-liberation and self-transformation and becoming.
Yes.
You also, I see you talk about Qliphotic Sorcery. So what does that mean? What does Qliphotic Sorcery mean?
Qliphotic Sorcery, mostly, I see the Qliphos not as many people see, like coming from the Kabbalistic tree of life, but I think that mostly of the Qliphots are a kind of 10 points of energy that each magician has inside, and through a process of deep workings, you can develop, understand how to work with such powers. Mm-hmm. This mostly is, what can I say, a kind of going inside yourself and try to develop such kinds of energy. Mostly your own abilities, fears, and that kind of your own shadow to work through. This level of knowledge is more a kind of exploration.
So
this is mostly the
So do you have any influence from Aleister Crowley? Do you incorporate any of Aleister Crowley's ideas into your work?
There is a Crowley, not so much perhaps in past days, I was mostly the readings of books as The Vision and the Voice, Magic Without Teeth, but mostly of my influence in my work could be Austin Oldman's Spur or mostly Michael Bertius, mostly into the bottom workings, but I put my own workings into it. It's mostly my main influences.
So does the concept of the holy guardian angel, does that come into your work anywhere? Or the idea
Yes.
of the daemon, the concept of the daemon?
Yes. Is the Holy Guardian Angel, so from my own perspective, is like the shadow self, mostly that to discover your own diamond, your high self, through a process of interiorization. When you introspect yourself, discover your own fear, your own capabilities to awaken the psychic powers and subconscious, you get in connection, in communion with your high self or daimon. Mostly it's a part of the primal state of consciousness. Perhaps sometimes men forgot going back to such primal states of consciousness. And this is most a part of this, to be in communion with your own self, with your daimon. This is for me the Holy Guardian Angel or daimon self.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that that's a super important concept. I think everything about the left-hand path can really just be distilled down to the pursuit of individuality, and it's like the holy guardian angel or the daemon is what constitutes that. That's part of the what makes us individuals, is that we have like a higher, unique self, that is kind of above us, and there's something about this level of existence that we are in right now to where we're kind of like separated from it. But by pursuing initiation, we try and like make that connection, try and reconnect with that aspect of ourselves.
I agree with you, yes. Mostly people get a bit confused with that, but I think that each person have to explore his or her own daemon and working into that. Most a kind of a part of introspection. I can say.
So how does shamanism fit in with it? I see you mentioned shamanism a lot also. What does that mean to you?
So shamanism is most a part of working according to laws of nature, to use of the elemental force of the nature of the sacred plants to get in connection with demons or with entities from interdimensional stuff. Because, for example, my conversation there will be about the magical use of tobacco in the left-hand path, in the sinister path, how you can invoke spirits with the tobacco, and how we can do a kind of connection within the plants and the humans. It's kind of like a kind of connect or a bridge between this world and the other side, and how we can work with plants, but in this case the tobacco, to get that connection with the plant.
So is your presentation? Are you going to be presenting on tobacco in Portland?
Yes. I will give first a perspective about the sinister alchemy and how this process of the sinister alchemy and Lehampat can be worked with plants, specifically the tobacco. How you can work with this for working, for example, with Lilith, but with Lucifer, with Arab-Sarak, the Qliphotic, or with Kajin, or with San La Muerte, how you can connect with the spirits. For example, we work with Goetias, with tobacco. It's very a good exposition of that too. So this is the main working I will speak about there.
That's exciting. So it's kind of like smoking the peace pipe, right?
Yes. So the main point is I always try to be a kind of visionary. So try to explore, diverse, and experiment with entities, with the spirit, using mostly plants, or sometimes use my own blood to get that connection. Is really, really great. it works. So I think every person must have find their own methods of working, because some methods don't work for another person, for other years. So it's more a kind of the idea is to find the elements that work with you to work with. For example, some people don't like to use blood because simply it doesn't work. So for me, it works. So I work with the element, and the same with tobacco. Tobacco is like a plant that have the fire, the four elements in that. When you smoke it, you get the iron, the element iron. When you pour fire, get the fire. The water, when you smoke, your mouth is full of saliva. It's more
Yeah.
it's the only plant that is connected with the four elements, and it's really, really, really interesting.
Sure. So do you have to actually smoke it to gain something from tobacco? To work, can you work with tobacco without smoking it? Because I used to be a smoker, but I quit.
I don't smoke.
Okay.
Even when you get tobacco, you suck and put the smoke in your mouth and blow it into the fetish. Blow into the fetish and try to do the invocation, or try to work mostly with mantras, and that kind of connection with the entity.
Okay, so you're saying you don't actually have to inhale it then to work with it.
Yes, I don't usually don't smoke. I only smoke with for magic or something. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. So tell me about. I saw you mention the red path and the red gods.
Yes, the red gods.
What does that mean?
The red gods was a series of experiments I was working about 10 years ago. I was exploring methods according to the tradition of the Exus from Brazilian Kimbanda and Qliphotic magic, and get in connection with 7 entities that I interact with these kind of entities, and get really powerful results into the paths of some for divination, some for healing, some for destruction. For example, there is one called Shaksiva that is mostly connected with aspect related with our necromancy and divination. So to try to explore and connect with that entity is mostly like these are mostly like 7 divinities or intelligences that I get in connection and try to explore and communicate, interact each other to get mostly knowledge of something. Yes.
So when you talk about entities and intelligences and stuff like that, what is that? What do you think that is, like metaphysically? What are other intelligences? Is it manifestations of human consciousness, reflections of your own consciousness, or are there other things out there in your world?
It's a very complex question, because sometimes when you do a kind of magical working, sometimes there is a kind of reflection from your subconscious, something that comes from yourself. But sometimes some people don't understand that, but there is a physical manifestation that don't come from your concept, but you can see, feel, smell, not even touch, because they haven't a physical body. But mostly you can feel, sense the smell. For example, you are doing some working and you smell like jasmine, for example. If you are in your altar and don't have any jasmine there, you do, for example, a working with a viewing or other goetic entity, for just for example, and start to smell that from coming from nothing, and looking a shadow near your room, or just say the shadows coming from the candles. Is just mostly a kind of physical manifestation, different than the elements that coming from your subconscious, that you can take out about, like experiment and something inner yourself, that like something like speaking inside yourself, something coming from your subconscious, and something that you can see. The physical manifestation is mostly that.
Do you think it's important for people to have a understanding of these things, have a philosophical, like, sort of understanding of the metaphysics of these things in order to go in and start working with these things successfully?
I think it's very important to people knows what comes from the subconscious and what comes from the physical plane. Because when we are working in our respective ritual, you are opening a kind of vortex of energy. You know that energy sometimes can manifest from different levels. We're working with astral energy. We are working with the levels from other level of existence, different to displaying other or parallel entities from living from other worlds that are here, but you can see. Sometimes people get confused because think that everything in magic comes from subconscious. I think that sometimes it happens, but sometimes it's mostly a kind of physically. It's great to understand that spirits, entities also be kind of manifest in a physical way, not with human flesh, but also physical from a point of view.
So I got to back up then. So how did you get involved with this stuff? How did you discover the left-hand path and black magic? I mean, were you born this way, or how did you encounter it?
It was really very years ago. I was mostly about 17, 18 years old. I got involved with several friends trying to reading typical stuff from Magic or Anton Sandor LaVey, stuff looking into the libraries here about occultism, esoterics, and get really impressed by the kind of inner change that appears in my life. So being more introspective each time, questioning everything, and that's kind of questioning where you question yourself, question your life, question your limitations. You learn how to explore more your inner self. I started working with that, so I understand could know more about the order or the nine angles. Get very involved in that kind of Satanism because really like so much that kind of working. After some years working, started working with Aleister Crowley, just material from that point of Thelema, working with some friends in the Logi Oasis for some years, and later getting in connection with a book called Bodied Gnostic Workbook from Michael Bertius. He really was impressed because I have never had the experience to paint, and I was studying graphic design, and I did a painting of the three candles and some shadows coming from the candles. And 2 months later, I got the Linda Valerius book and got the Bodied Gnostic Workbook and see the 5th chapter that the 5 rituals involve the views of candles and start to see the shadows. There is a kind of connection. I understand that the laws of the spirit from voodoo call me to work with them, and since then my life changed radically. I started doing music with projects, mostly in a very rudimentary way because I have no mostly big equipments, just my PCA and something, because we live here in Colombia, South America. Always we have some kind of limitation, but try to work more and more, and mostly of the kind of my knowledge, the humble knowledge I have, try to put this into the music and try. This is mostly when I start to work on everything on this.
Wow. So now you're getting into the music. You're getting into the music now. So I listened to some of your stuff. Was it Emma Ya?
Yes.
Yeah. So I liked the tribal stuff on it. So what are you doing? Are those live drums? Is that real like tribal drumming in that? Or are you doing everything electronic? Or
mostly of the stuff is I use what can I say, a program in the computer, Ableton Live, and I also use some analog sounds. So analog sound I use metal, kinds, drums, sometimes wind instrument, but mostly it's processed in PC and going with effects and give that kind of atmosphere that I pretend to work with. It's mostly that I need to maybe to learn how to put this in live, because it's very difficult, because I don't have any knowledge about electronic or devices or something. But you know, when you're a magician, you have a very creative spirit, and every time you are creating, moving, and working on all this.
Yeah. And you're going to do a musical collaboration with Michael Ford in Portland too, aren't you?
Yes, we are planning to do a very kind of visual ritual with Asasal in connection with Lilith, and this will be really amazing piece. We are really working hard on this, and we will have a very good surprise doing a very ritual performance, because the idea is to interact and do it with background music, doing some instruments and live, and doing a ritual with Michael.
Yeah, that's real exciting, man. I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be really cool. So you went to you've been to a couple of these occult Left Hand Path conferences prior to this, weren't you? You went to like St. Louis and some other things like that.
Yes, I was the first time I was about 3-4 years in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
It was really a great consortium. And last year I was in San Luis, was really amazing. I was in the consortium with the friends like Lucas Grochoki, Asenan Mason, Bill Dubin, and it was great because everybody is like a family sharing ideas, because mostly some work in paganism, others in Satanism, like Toby Chappell, for example, other working with Qliphots and Luciferianism, and sharing ideas and sharing with all of them is really great, because the idea is to create always a very great unit community, working all together for the rising of the Left Path and the sinister tradition, working from different continents together is really awesome idea. This is why I love so much the idea of the Black Flame, because it's a kind of congregation to empower more our movement worldwide.
Yeah, so I went to the one last year in Portland, and it was pretty intense, pretty significant seeing all of this stuff happening. And so here's the question that I have for you is, what do you think all this means? So it's only been, the last 5 years or so, there's been these conferences going on, these like Left Hand Path conferences, and this is a new thing, as far as I know. I mean, for years, and, I've been, following the Left Hand Path and the Satanic and Setian movements for a couple of decades now, and there's never anything like this before. I got into this stuff during the, in the late 80s, during when it was a satanic panic. And so everyone, was pretty, it was pretty underground. It was an underground kind of like movement. And now there's these conferences going on. What do you think that means in the bigger picture of things, as far as like society's evolution?
Yes, I think it's awakening. People are just tired of being kind of mental slavery and spiritually closed, so people away. People like knowledge. Fortunately, today you have a lot of people orders. You can buy grimoires. People, magic is everywhere, so people have access to different currents of magic. People can choose the current or the path they want. I think it's very important because it's a signal that spiritual evolution is coming, and everybody wants a way to learn to grow spiritually working, and this is very important.
So do you think it's going to result? Is this going to result in a lasting and meaningful change for humanity, or is this something that's just
Yes,
gonna, is it gonna
I
fade and
think
turn into
I
something else?
think mostly like a ionic evolution in this century. So we have seen how with the increase of the years, people are becoming mostly interested in esoterics and magic, mostly in dark currents. So people are becoming to explore more the dark side of their nature. So this is very important. I think it's a kind of ionic flux of energy that is coming to the planet, emanating from the diverse entities or another level of assistance, and this is the reason why so many people are coming interested in magic, in sorcery, in shamanism, working with plants, other with crystals, but always from a Black Path perspective is very important.
Yeah, I agree. And then there's also that there's that show that's on right now on CBS that's about Jack Parsons.
Yes.
Have you been seeing any of that? Do you get that at where you're at in Colombia?
Yes, Jack Parsons' Liber Babylon is one of the most amazing books I ever read. When
Yeah.
I was working with the Buddha Jack Parsons, I understood mostly the nature about Lilith and how the connection within to awaken the feminine aspect in men, not the feminine like sexuality, but mostly the mentality, because the women is very important in Lehan Path because she always working to the nature of instincts and intuition, and this is a point I learned most from Jack Parson, Book of Babylon.
Yeah. And one of the things I think is really significant about that TV show, I think this is one of the first mainstream portrayals of an occult figure, and it's not a horror story. Because generally, anything else that's portrayed about occultism, it's a horror story. There's a monster. Someone's going to get killed, and it's all this bad stuff going on. And this is like the first show that portraying someone who was a magician who's just a real person, and he's just pursuing this stuff, to make his life better, and he works a real job. Not only that, he's very successful in what he did, with rocket fuel and the whole story about that. It's the first real positive, like kind of normal portrayal of someone pursuing this, and I think that's really significant. I can't think of when that's ever happened before, where there's been a movie or a TV show, about an occultist, and it wasn't just a horror show type thing.
Movie show. I don't understand well your question, please. Sorry.
Well, just that I think that's like that's really significant. It says something about where we are as a culture right now. That you know what I mean? That they're portraying Jack Parsons on TV just as a normal person. It's not like you know what I mean? It's not like like the Damien movies or stuff like that.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So tell me about Sirius. You also have what's Sirius Limited Esoterica. Is this one of the books? One of your books?
Zero Limited Esoterica is a small publishing house.
Uh-huh.
I am working for about 6
Okay.
years ago.
Okay, gotcha.
It's mostly in the working of doing our own books and books from other authors. We have released books from Sim Woodward, Ascendant Mason, Bill Dubendak, and my own small grimoires, and mostly of the anthologies like Qliphotic Journal and Sabbatica, Nosas and Nosomnia, mostly the work I have released through it. Also, we release talismans and fetish CDs, because our books always come with extra items like print cards and talisman in a very small quantities. Mostly for right now, we are working mostly with the 22 books, deluxe books, and we just mostly distribute by Miskatonic Books. and 22 books, and doing for standard copies mostly 44 books, no more, just more as limited editions of the books.
Excellent. Sounds like you got dogs there.
Sorry?
You got a dog there?
Yeah, we have two small daughters and our dogs.
Okay.
They are two schnauzers. We
Okay.
love dogs. I love pets, so.
Oh yeah, no. I got
Michael has like 4 snakes. I have 2 dogs.
Oh, that's awesome. I got dogs too. I've got a couple of big Dobermans and one little Dachshund. So you might hear them barking around here too. But I think that's important. I think you can you totally judge a person's character by their dogs. You know, people who have dogs, it's always a certain type of person. It always shows character in my view.
Yes, I like dogs so much. Yes.
Yeah, they're wonderful. So is that part of the and I consider dogs, that's part of the Sirius connection too. You know, Sirius,
Yes.
the dog star.
Yes, the dogs are like guardians. For example, in the Mexican Cult of the Dead, Mixanteclut, he has the dogs, the Solot. They are dogs that guards the people's souls into the underworld. So the dogs are very important in many cultures as guardians
Oh yeah.
from the underworld.
Yeah. So, there's Anubis, right? People talk about Anubis in Egyptian. That's like one of the obvious, mythological occurrences of the dog theme. But I learned recently that dogs are also figure prominently in Zoroastrianism. And in Zoroastrianism, in the Persian system, it's like dogs are the only animal that has a place in the afterlife along with humans. And in the Zoroastrian funerary rites specifically have a dog involved in it. It's important, like during this period, and a lot of cultures have this, like after the body dies, there's like this 3-day period when the soul is like sort of like threatened, right? Where the soul is going through a transition and it's threatened by, demons or whatever. And like having a dog around the body at that time helps protect the soul from helps guide the soul on its way. So again, it comes back to this idea of dogs being like a guardian and a guide into the afterlife, to the underworld.
Yes.
But yeah, I like dogs. So I liked the what was it called? Night Side of Eden. That's what I listened to.
What?
The Night Side of Eden.
Yes. Night Side of Eden is, for me, is mostly beside the book by Kenneth Grant. I see it mostly like a kind of region where they added into the magic and explore the Qliphots. It's like a region of the subconscious where you can find each one of the stage that leads you to the liberation, leads you to the awakening and the understanding your own powers, your own energies that are there, but you don't know how to get access to them. It's mostly to see your shadow self and to know more about yourself. And the other side of it is like introspective travel into the sea of wisdom, where you are exploring or eating and your own fruits of knowledge. It's mostly an inner voyage that each person must explore in order to know more about her or himself.
Yeah, definitely. So, what do you consider to be the ultimate? What is the ultimate achievement that you wish to obtain with like bringing your magic into the world? What is your ultimate wish that you have to create with it?
The ultimate goal must be to goodhood, to not to be a kind of slave about any spiritual, social, or unlimited reality but mostly like to explore, to live like a god in different level of existence, in the spiritual, in astral, in physical, and mostly living according your own will. Because I think that a person that can release from a kind of enslavement or matrix of the reality that we live in is very important. That the humans would need to learn how to see with the mental eye, not to see only the reality as he see with the eyes, but mostly with the mental eye. So goodhood is very important, I think. I don't know if perhaps it is the most important, because it's always we as magicians are learning new, working and exploring more, and I really understand that I need to learn a lot more. But I think in this moment in my life is very important to goodhood.
No, I think I agree with that. I think I agree with that like really strongly. I think that if you realize that you are not free, if you realize that you're basically a slave, then nothing else can really matter. Nothing else can be important other than to be free and to have will. And to me, that comes back to Thelema. To me, that's the essence of Thelema and Aleister Crowley's word and teaching.
Definitely, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, freedom and will. Well, awesome, Edgar. I'm really looking forward to seeing you in Portland. I think we're going to be sharing a house together, too.
Oh, that's excellent. I am
Yeah.
very excited to be there to know each other and to spread with that. Sorry for example, my English is not the best, but I just try to speak as fluently as because the barriers of language sometimes is it's just normal. My fears, my native language is Spanish, but
Uh-huh.
I just try to speak well English.
Oh, yeah, no worries, man. I mean, close enough. I mean, we connect on enough things that I know where you're coming from, you know? We both know the word we both know the word Thelema, right? So
Yeah,
that's really the main word everyone needs to know.
really.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, thanks for talking with me this evening. Do you have any final words or thoughts?
Thank you so much. I just hope to see you in some weeks next month there in Portland. And thank you so much for the opportunity and to everybody that come on to the Black Flame, because this will be one of the most important events this year coming in North America and even in Canada. So
Yeah.
welcome.
Excellent. Me too, man. Awesome. It's going to be great. I'm so excited. I can't wait to be up there. It's going to be so great seeing you up there. And we're going to have a great time. And we're going to do a lot of magic. There's going to be a lot of magic. There's going to be a lot of fire. There's going to be a lot of learning. And I know everyone's going to like come away from this like a totally changed person. So it's going to be good.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right. Take care, man. We'll see you soon.
See you soon, brother.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.